Hello everyone and welcome back to the Candidates 2024 saga, meaning that Gukesh and Arjun Erigaisi are trying to qualify for the FIDE Candidates tournament by playing in the Chennai Grandmasters, and they have to overtake Anish Giri in the FIDE circuit. Anish currently is leading, and Parha Maksulu is trying to overtake Wesley via rating, as Wesley is currently the highest rated player to qualify for the Candidates tournament via rating. Of course, that's still to be seen because Lennart is doing quite well and he could very well overtake Wesley, but it would require him to really push it for the rest of the tournament, although he's playing a completely different event. And Parha Maksudlu also had a great chance as he started the Chennai Grandmasters with 27-42, but he lost the first game to Pavel Elyanov and he is now currently down 5 points. So anything could still happen. Let's check out this one as it could be very impactful for the actual lineup of the Candidates Tournament 2024. Arjun faces Alexandr Predke. We've seen a couple of Alexandr's games. He's been playing amazing chess throughout the entire year. Let's see what happened here. We have pawn to e4 by Arjun and pawn to c5. Predke, you've seen that he really likes to play active chess. He wants open positions. So a Sicilian defense makes sense. We have knight f3, knight to c6, and now d4, challenging to an open Sicilian. C captures, knight captures. We have knight to f6, and now knight to c3. And here Alexandr strikes with e5. The Pelikan or the Sveshnikov or the Lasker, this has many names. And ever since Fabiano Caruana played it against Magnus Carlsen, or rather Magnus played this line against Fabiano in their 2018 World Chess Championship match, it has become quite popular. Not just the opening, but the particular line that they played. Knight b to d5, knight d to b5, we have d6, and now knight to d5, threatening knight to c7 check, so you have to capture here, knight captures, pawn captures, and now knight to e7. Also, knight to b8 is possible, sometimes knight to b4, but maybe not in a serious game. Here, knight to e7 was played, and there are even 3 games, I think, in the World Chess Championship between Fabiano and Magnus where Fabi played pawn to c4, but here we have pawn to c3, already deviating from the World Chess Championship games, and now you have to figure out how to develop your king side, and knight to f5 is the move. You don't have the e4 pawn, so unless g4 is played, that knight will remain there. We have pawn to a4, and now bishop to e7, bishop to d3 now, attacking the knight, and just castles by both players. So castles, and now knight to h4, going for a very aggressive setup here. Now the bishops are attacking that king side, also the queen might be able to enter, and the knight is just a very annoying piece there. So here we have pawn to f4, this is still all theory. F4, the top move recommended by the engine, a6 kicking away the knight, knight to a3, and now e captures on f4. We have bishop captures, and now knight back to g6, attacking the bishop on f4. And probably you guys, if you were playing this game, would just move the bishop somewhere like bishop e3 or bishop c1 or bishop to g3, and the engine would even agree with you, saying that yes, of course we should move the bishop, we should preserve the bishop pair at all costs. But interestingly, whoever reaches this position does not do that, just plays bishop captures on g6 and gives up the light square bishop instead, trying to hone in on that d6 weakness. And okay, we have h captures on g6, and now knight to c4, now putting some pressure on that pawn. Maybe you can improve with some like queen f3, queen to g3. How is black to defend this? So let's see, queen to c7. Now if needed, the rook can also come to d8. We have pawn to b3 defending the knight on c4, and now there are a couple of games where bishop to f5 was played, but here we have pawn to b6 by Alexandr, and it is now as of move 18 that we have a completely new game. And now, as a target has been presented, bishop back to e3. Also, you could play queen to d4 pretty much with the same idea, but Arjun wants to shift the bishop over to this diagonal. So he goes bishop to e3 with tempo, rook to b8 defending, and now bishop to d4. We have bishop to g5, and now knight to d2. Of course, you want to play c4 and improve your pawn structure, and the knight really does belong on e4 or f3. Rook to e8, and now pawn to c4. We have bishop to e3 with check, trading off this bishop for this amazing dark square bishop. Bishop captures, rook captures, and now we have rook to e1, offering a rook trade. Queen to c5, now threatening some very nasty discoveries, and Arjun just escapes with the king. King to h1, and now bishop to f5. Knight to f3, and here Arjun really allows Alexandr to go for a very nasty idea here, and the nasty idea is rook to d3. Point being that it's impossible to defend the b3 pawn. You don't go, of course, you cannot go under the mask of the bishop. Just rook captures on f3, wins the game. And if you try something like queen to e2, then it's a free pawn, and there's no compensation for white here. It's just a much better position for black. So it's very interesting that he decides to go for bishop to g4 instead, and Arjun, of course, very happily trades here. Rook captures, queen captures, and now queen to d4, not allowing the trade on f3, as now the queen on e3 is hanging. So queen captures on d4, we have a queen trade, and knight captures. So this is the position. Equal material, Alexandr does have a doubled g pawn, and also yes, the game is on both sides of the board, so bishop should be a little bit better, but the active knight could have the edge here. So let's see what happens. Bishop back to d7, just nicely controlling that white knight on d4, and pawn to a5, trying to give the rook the open a file. We have pawn to b5, and now c captures on b5. We have bishop captures on b5. Of course, you do not give Arjun the passed a pawn, so bishop captures, and now king to g1. Of course, you have to get your king into the game. This is the end game after all. Bishop to d3, and now we have rook to a4, and this is just a very, very powerful move, asking what do you play here. And what you should play here, believe it or not, is something like bishop to e4. And what could white do here? Well, it's hard to say, but probably something like knight to c6, and after rook to e8, defending the bishop, you will go knight to b4. And it's a very tricky position to handle, but then you go back, rook to e8, and you still hold. But Alexandr said, nope, let's go rook to e8 right away. And now rook to b4. We have rook to e1 with check, king to f2, and now this looks like a fun check, but it doesn't really do all that much. So rook back to e5 attacks the d5 pawn, and now knight to c6. So what is happening here? Can you capture this pawn here? Well, you could capture it, but then knight to e7 check, and you've blundered the rook. Of course, none of you were considering that. So here, rook to e2 with check. We have king to f3. Of course, you don't go under the mask of the bishop here. And now rook to a2. Putting pressure on the a5 pawn, so the knight on c6 cannot move. Rook to b8 with check, king to h7, and now rook to d8, just going after the pawn here. Now, the position is already very much better for Arjun, but he has to find knight to b4, attacking both the rook and the bishop. And now after bishop to e2 check and king e3, the rook can't really leave the second rank. So you have to move the rook away from the defense of or rather from the attack of the a5 pawn. And once the rook moves, you go rook b6. Just put pressure on the pawns. Again, you cannot capture because king captures on e2, and once you move the bishop, only now knight captures on a6, and the pawn here is defended. And if you go for bishop captures on a6, then rook captures and rook captures on b3 check, but the active position of the white king and the passed a pawn is very much winning for Arjun here. But rook to d8 was played, and now we have pawn to f5, and bishop to f1 was the way to go here, moving the bishop, pressuring the g2 pawn. But after pawn to f5, Arjun does have something to say about this position. He plays rook captures on d6, now creates a passed e pawn, bishop to e4 check, we have king to f4, and now rook captures on g2. This also gives Alexandr a passed f pawn, so we are definitely in for a race here. Rook to d8, and now pawn to g5 with check, king to e5, and rook captures on h2. Knight to d4, you have to move the knight before you start advancing the pawn. So knight to d4, and now rook to a2, going after the a5 pawn. And there's only one winning move for Arjun here, but I'm sure you guys don't need to even pause the video to find this one. The move is, of course, the move that's always winning, and that is pawn to b4. You defend your a5 pawn, and now there's just nothing you can do here. Of course, everyone will start pushing here, as did Alexandr. He played pawn to g4, and now there are two really awesome ideas. One is to play d6, the other one is to sacrifice the rook right away. It's pretty much the same idea. Rook h8 check, and after king captures d6, and now you queen with check. There's no stopping the pawn, because okay, you don't have c2, that square is covered, and even if you did just d7 and you don't have a rook to c8, the bishop cannot stop anything since the c6 square is covered by the rook. So tough position. But Arjun played d6 first, and it's pretty much the same thing. G3, and now pawn to D7. We have pawn to G2, and now, of course, he gives up the rook. Rook to H8 with check. King captures, and now D8 queen, and the problem is you will be just in time to stop the queening of the G pawn. King H7, queen to G5. So now comes rook A1. You still want to advance that pawn to victory, but now knight to E2 keeps control over the G2 square. And the problem is you can't kick away the knight. If you play something like a bishop to D3, it's just very easy to pick off black's pieces. You will just deliver a check, queen to H4 check, and now if king to G6, then queen G3 check will pick up the bishop, and if you go back with king to G8, then of course queen to D8 check picks up the bishop on D3. So rook to B1 was played, trying to eliminate that B4 pawn, which was kind of the reason of your doom. But now king to E6. Arjun finds the cleanest way to victory. He wants to play king F7 and capture here with checkmate. Of course, Predke will stop this. We have rook captures on B4, queen to H4 with check, king to G8, and now queen to D8 with check, king to H7, and now king to F7. So of course rook to B7 with check, but now king to F8. And is there some sort of a fortress here? Is it possible somehow to keep control over this? Well, let's see. Pawn to F4 by Alexandr. It's again the best move, but you don't really gain anything by it. Queen to H4 with check, king to G6, and now knight captures on F4 with check. King to F5, and now knight captures on G2. And you can't even pick up the knight here because queen F2 check just takes the bishop. So after this, we have pawn to G5. But now knight to E3 with check, king to F6, and now queen to H6 with check. You could maybe try some other things, but this is the cleanest way to do it. Queen to H6 check, king to E5, and now queen to G5 with check, king to D4, and now queen to F4. So just very, very clean. We have rook to B5, and now king to E7. We have king to D3. Of course, if you capture this, again, you run into all sorts of nasty ideas, like knight to C2 with check. Now the king can't really move far away because you have to defend the bishop, but once you go here, then queen to D6 with check, king C4, now queen to D4 check will pick off the bishop, or even if king to B3, you can just take it, and the knight is also defended. So you're hoping for something, but there just isn't anything. King D3, knight to G4, and now bishop to D5. The fact that there's still the possibility of maybe eliminating the A5 pawn and creating a passed pawn is what keeps Alexandr going. Knight to E5 check, king to C3, and now queen to E3 with check. King to B4, now comes king to D6. We have rook captures on A5, he does create a passed pawn, but now knight to D3 with check, king to C4, and knight to B2 with check. King B4, queen to D2 with check, now you have to defend the rook, king to B5, and here we have queen to D4, and it was in this position on move 72 that Alexandr Predke resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Or maybe he resigned even sooner. Let me just check, I don't want to trick you guys. Because it's possible that he resigned even sooner. Yeah, he actually resigned here on queen to D2 check on a move before, because once you move the king, because you have to defend rook, and after king B5, something like queen D4 or queen to C5 checkmate is unstoppable. Whatever you play, queen to C5 is checkmate on the next move. So yeah, here is actually where Alexandr Predke resigned, and this would be excellent for Arjun had he not lost the first game to Hare Krishna Pentala, but as he did, he is now also on 1.5 points alongside Gukesh. The leader currently, Sanant Yugirov and Pentala Hare Krishna with 2 out of 3, then Levon, Elyanov, Gukesh, and Arjun with 1.5 points, Alexandr Predke with 1 out of 3, and in last place currently Parham Maksudlu, who is not having the tournament that he wanted as he was planning to overtake Wesley So in ratings to qualify for the FIDE candidates tournament that way. But okay, he's currently at -5. If he wins all the games that he has in this tournament, it's of course ensured that he will overtake Wesley and qualify for the candidates tournament. So it's still possible. We still have no way of knowing who will qualify. Will Wesley play? Will Anish play? Will Arjun play? Will Gukesh play? Will Maksudlu play? Will Dominguez play? So those are the people that we could see in the candidates tournament, but only 2 spots remaining. So that's the game. Very nicely done by Arjun. He gave Alexandr a couple of chances to grab hold of a better position, but you either do it or you don't. So once again, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to wish good luck on law school finals, KMV, and I would like to thank Benjamin Heuberger, Elf on a Shelf, Gregory Novak, and Kenneth Few for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.